Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. I'm your host, Sean Smith, and we have a good one in store for you today. This one is going to be for those of you who are super nerds when it comes to archery like me, or just looking for that next best bowstring to put on your current rig or whatever. So on this episode, we have a special guest. His name is Brent Kenchen. He is the owner of A3 Archery, and he's here to join us this evening to talk all about bowstrings. Brent, how are you, sir?
Good, man.
Hopefully I got that all right.
Yeah.
Oh, Brent, you and I have been playing tag for a little bit to get this up and running. I'm just glad we finally got this put together and bring you on board. How are things on your side of the wonderful country?
You're doing good, man. I mean, we're down here in Texas. It's it warmed up for a little bit, and now we got a little cold front blew through, so it's kind of chilly outside. But for the most part, everything's great.
Yeah, your cold fronts are like 50 degrees. Ours is like -10. So
Yeah, well, I get that, man. I lived in Montana for 6 years, so I get the cold, I get the heat for sure. But I'm a Southern guy, lived in Louisiana, born and raised in Louisiana for most of my life, so I'm kind of used to the heat and the humidity.
yeah, yes. So what part of Texas are you from then?
We live in Texas. We're just outside of Fort Worth.
Okay.
But originally from just south of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay. I've got a buddy who lives in Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I think you guys call it Nevada, but it's actually spelled Nevada. He
Yeah.
runs a cowboy church there in that area. So
Okay. Okay. Right on, man. I've been to a lot of the cowboy churches here and around Fort Worth. So you had to figure out which one it is.
yeah, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. His name's Jeff Parsons. He was a firefighter up here in Ohio, moved to Texas to follow his calling as a preacher, and he's been moved around a couple of different locations, and now he's pretty successful with that cowboy church right now. So he's doing pretty good. So
Right on,
small
man. Right
world.
on. So what part of Ohio are you in?
So I'm in the easiest way for me to explain this. I'm the most southern part of Northeast Ohio. So I'm over I live in Tuscarawas County, which is the about 30 minutes south of Canton, Ohio. So I'm around the Dover, New Philadelphia area.
Okay.
Is where
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
from.
I know exactly where it's at, man. I lived in Lima for a good little bit and traveled all
Okay.
over. Yep.
Yep. Off in the west part of the state there.
Yep.
Good old Lima.
Yep. Oh, well,
And
I, I
bet
used
you
to
talk to.
I used to work for Husky Energy, the oil and gas refiner there in Lima. That's why why I lived there for a while.
Well, you've been all over the place, man. So
Oh
let's
man, my former career took me. I think I was 28 states and 3 countries.
whew,
Yeah, so
whew.
I've done some traveling.
You're a first time comer onto the podcast. So let's kind of get a little bit of an introduction of, who you are, when, what you've done, especially in the outdoor world, and it sounds like talk to you off air. You've got a pretty deep grasp of like shooting professionally as well in the archery realm. So let's kind of get some of that stuff out there so listeners know who you are and kind of understand how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess we start off. I mean, my dad owned an archery shop, um, and I, worked side by side with him. Starting probably at 10, 11, 12 years old, working on bows, building bowstrings, and if you go back to those days, I'm gonna show my age a little bit, but um, that's when you just had to build a bowstring because the cables were actually stainless steel braided cables covered in plastic. Um, so, we just had to build a bowstring, and I was using, old Fireflight material or Dynaflight type material. Some of them were or B-55 type material. Um, and then competing as a youth and a young adult, and um, just traveling all over the place shooting my bow. Um, but then I got older in my adult life, and I caught the indoor bug. I don't know if you've heard of that, but once you start shooting indoor, um, there's just something about it that just really um, gravitates you to that indoor, world. And so I started shooting. I mean, during indoor season, I was in a different state or a different country every month. Shooting as a semi-pro, as an amateur, then a professional, um, and so yeah, just shooting all over the place, man. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Met a lot of people, and had a good time doing it.
I have considered shooting indoor a little bit at certain points. I'm like, man, that's an awful lot. That's an awful lot of shooting. Like,
That's-
'cause you watch the Lancaster Classics, you watch like the Vegas shoots, you're looking at, there's some high arrow counts just, by the time you're done. So even just going to 300. So shooting a 300, that's still, well, that's 30 arrows, you know, Lancaster, that'd be a 330, unless you're in the finals. And that's when you're getting the 12s when you're shooting the classic with them. So
Yep.
that's a lot. That's a lot of arrows. And I do shoot a lot myself personally, but I don't get that high of arrow counts to where I think I keep the stamina. I don't know. It's just,
No, and if you jump into, get away from the Vegas face and go to a 5 spot, that's even more arrows.
mm,
You're talking 60 arrows an end,
yeah,
not
yeah,
30,
you are.
because your scoring ring, your top scoring ring is only 5 points. So,
Mhm.
you're, uh, you're getting up there in the 600 point range, so you're shooting double. So the stamina, you definitely have to have it.
So what's the remedy to that? Is it just shooting all the time, or is there like some type of workout program or something that you would probably try to get to help with that?
Through my shooting, I mean, I always stayed in the gym, always kind of stayed in shape, and like I said earlier, before off air, I mean, I'd shoot 3,000 arrows a month, in practice. So it's just really staying with the muscle memory, and just keeping going.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I shoot a lot, but I don't know if I shoot that much. I don't know if I get that many arrows out, but I do shoot at least anywhere between 10 to 20 arrows a day.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm shy of, I'm probably safe to say I'm somewhere between 600 arrows a month. Probably I end up really shooting on a good day.
And the big thing is, and this is with anything, if you're just not having a good day, don't force yourself to shoot, because you're going to force yourself to get bad habits.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I always tell any student or anybody that I'm tutoring or teaching or coaching is, if you're having a bad day and things just aren't hitting the target downrange the way you want them, just put it down and go do something different.
Yeah.
Don't push yourself to go through it, because you will create bad habits.
You know how frustrating it is for me though when I'm out there and I'm shooting and I know what I'm capable of doing, but I'm not doing it. And so then I'm going to tell myself I'm going to do this, and then it just starts to spiral out of control. I'm like, I got to stop.
And that's the most horrible thing, because I used to be the same way, and it's like, okay, well, I'm critiquing my form a little bit, I'm changing a little something here, to make me hit where I wanna hit. Well, I'm just building that bad habit,
Hmm.
that I don't need, because just the day prior, 2 days prior, I was shooting lights out, so yeah, um, if you're having a bad day, if something's not coming together, just put it down.
Stop while you're ahead. Just stop.
Yep.
That's another thing I had a problem younger was that. So I'd have a bad day. You didn't know it was a bad day. You just like, oh, I'm just hitting to the right today. So you adjust your sight. When
Mhm.
you do something, right? And you go back
Yep.
out the next day, now all of a sudden you're hitting left. You're like, what is going on here? And that's something I've had to teach myself. It's like, hey, listen, it might be that today. Don't change anything. Come back tomorrow. If it's still the same, then make the change. But if it's
That's
not,
right.
don't touch it.
That's right. That's right. Um and talking about day-to-day shooting, you know, so many archers that I know and that I've talked to, they're like, "Man, last week I was, shooting lights out at 30 yards, everything was great, and, today I'm like, everything's high or everything's low." And I'm like, "Well, check your timing."
Mhm.
And they're like, "What?" I was like, "Check your timing. If you start seeing a high miss or a low miss after being, dead nuts, check your timing. Either the top cam or the bottom cam may be advanced or, retarded. Check your timing." And a lot of times it's cable stretch, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
mo
that's
mo most archers they'll just chase their sight,
mhm.
right? "Oh, I'm hitting high, so let me adjust my sight," and it's not even the sight, it's the bow, it's the strings.
Yeah. Well, there's that too. But once you get to that level, like when you get that level of precision, right? Even when you have different pressure, like you're not pulling through your back wall as hard, that changes, unless you've tuned that out. I've seen the videos of people like Crispy and them who have like little tuning methods to kind of reduce that as much as possible. But I've noticed that too myself. Not that I'm that great of an archer, but if I'm shooting distance, let's just put it that way. So every little mistake is magnified at distance, right? 100 plus yards, right? I've noticed that if I'm not getting into the back wall the same, or if I don't have the same amount of pressure, that changes my up and down like
Yes,
significantly. You notice it.
it definitely can. I've always been the one that, tries to pull the wheels off the bow.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's just me. I mean, I literally, you know, people tell me I'm just crazy because I pull so hard through my shot, but that's one way that I make sure that they're the same.
Yeah.
I don't have a soft pull or a hard pull. I'm literally trying to pull the wheels off the boat.
Hmm.
So, and I've bent axles, doing that. I mean, it's it's happened. So
I've not done that yet, but okay.
yeah,
I never even knew that was possible. I figured dry firing a bow would, but actually pulling and bending your axles just from a pull. Whew.
yeah, yeah. I did it
Uh,
to a couple of Hoyt bows back when I used to shoot the Hoyt
ooh.
stars. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they probably heard about you and started building their bows around you at that point because they try to tell you they're bomb proof these days. So all the stuff they go through. But well, so you have a rich history in archery, and you mentioned something about stretch when it comes to like your cables or just your string and stuff, and how that starts to sneak in and stuff. And if you listen to other podcasts, if you listen to just the noise that's on the internet right now, there's going to be a lot of people telling you that they're talking about custom strings, like custom strings this, custom strings that, get away from the factory strings. This is when the factory strings, there, you see the stretch, you see this, but you want to go to a custom set of strings because that's going to reduce that amount of that stretch you get or the rotations and stuff. So obviously, this knowledge on your side of this is probably kind of what led you down the road of what you're doing today. And if we're jumping too far ahead, we can always go back if you want to and cover a few things. But obviously, it's brought you down to where you are today, and you are a custom string builder today. And I'm sure there's reasons why. And if you want to touch on some of those, that's great. If not, I understand. We don't want to talk chunk a lot of people, and I get that. But yeah, there's.
well, we can keep it simple. I mean, you know, um, the strings I was getting from different various companies, and we're not going to badmouth anybody.
Huh.
Um, but the strings that I were getting, they just kept moving, right? They kept stretching, and I had to keep, adjusting my sight tapes or adjusting my sights, checking timing constantly. And to be honest with you, when you're shooting um, in a tournament or a competition, you don't want to be, you don't want that in your head.
Mm-mm.
What if something moved? Or, you know, am I hitting lower? Am I hitting high because of my cables moved a little bit? Or did my draw length increase an eighth of an inch? Why would you want, as an archer, as somebody competitive,
Hmm.
why would you want that, in the back of your brain? One of the mottos we have is shoot with confidence, shoot A3. Because that's the reason I started the company. It was because I was not confident in my equipment that I was buying from manufacturers. So, and then people also, you hear that, like you said, you hear that word stretch. Oh, my bowstring stretched. Um, there's a misconception there because a bowstring cannot physically stretch unless it's put under enormous amounts of load for a long time. Okay, so it can't. stretch and be physically stretched. So there's what they call elongation, right?
Hmm.
Elongation is when you stretch the bowstring and say it stretches a quarter inch, right? But then when you release the pressure, it goes right back to where it used to be at. That's elongation.
Okay.
Stretches, I stretched it a quarter inch and I let the pressure off and it stays a quarter inch longer, right? Your bow cannot make a bowstring permanently stretch. It's impossible.
Okay.
So
Just not it doesn't put enough pressure on the string then.
no, it can't. I mean,
Mhm.
the peak load of your bow, your string is only going to see the peak load of whatever weight that is, you know. But as soon as you hit your let off, you're letting off that 70 pounds and you're, holding, whatever it is, 10, 12 pounds. Now your cables are compounding the energy and they may see 200, 300 pounds of tension, your cables. But that's just until the shot's released. When I say to make a bowstring physically stretch, we're talking 1,000 pounds over hours, right? So, um, the word stretch is misused in the industry, and what people are seeing, and pardon my language, is just a piss poor bowstring build. That's what it is. Um, when they see stretch, and things do get longer, but it's the bundle, right? You got that twisted bundle. That bundle is getting tighter, which is making the string get longer. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So that's the misconception of stretch. It's not really the string stretching, it's the bundles getting tighter. Um, if you're shooting a waxed product, like a
Hmm.
452 Extra, um, that's the wax being extruded outside of the string, giving it more room to get compacted, and things are getting longer. So if I've got one cable that has more wax than the other cable, well, one's going to get longer quicker than the other one. So
Okay.
your timing gets off, right? You also see it in, you're in Ohio, you're shooting your bow in the summertime, it's 90 degrees and everything's on the money. Well, come hunting season, when temperatures get cold and you're shooting something that has wax in it, wax contracts when it gets cold, right? So if I got more wax on one cable than the other one, and that wax gets cold, one cable is going to be shorter than the other one. So all of a sudden now you've got a timing issue.
Hmm.
So
It doesn't take much.
it doesn't take much. I mean, you're talking a 16th. It doesn't take a whole lot, but, um, then we talk about mass production of bowstrings. So these big companies out there that are just producing bowstring after bowstring after bowstring, they got 30, 40 people working for them. What is the Achilles heel of a bowstring of manufacturing? What would you think that is? So if I've
I'd
got,
probably say the person making it, but or the
well,
time, the effort you put into it. Because I
so
think.
if
Go
I've
ahead.
got, if I've got 30 people building bowstrings, and they're laying them out, they're serving the end loops, and they're twisting them, and then they got to go on a stretcher, right? They got to stretch. They got to
Hmm.
stretch. Well, if I got 30 people building bowstrings, right? So I can lay out an entire set in 25 minutes. Then I got to put them on a stretcher, which I've got 12 stretchers in my shop. I can fill those up really fast. How long do people let them stretch for? That's the that's the that's the pinch point of building bowstrings, right? So a lot of these big companies that are building bowstrings, do you really think they're stretching those strings for the allotted amount of time that they need? The answer is no.
Not
They
to keep up
can't.
with production.
They can't keep up with production if they do. So,
Hmm.
you know, um, and then that kind of led me down the road 6 years ago, 7 years ago, on how do we build a bowstring that doesn't require retuning after 100 or 200 shots. And so that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of what is the bow actually doing to the strings and cables to make them get compacted faster, or a way to compact them faster, or build a memory into the fiber. That way, when you put the strings on the bow, 100 shots, 200 shots down the road, I'm not taking it back to my shop to have them retune it. And so that's when I started developing pre-cycle technology, right? So Pre-stretched bowstrings are stretched at about 350 pounds of static tension.
Hmm.
Okay, that's 350 pounds, 400 pounds statically, right? If they let them sit there 15 minutes, you're lucky. Okay. Um, what we do, or what I do with pre-cycle, is it's actually all done with a computer. So the computer's controlling the air cylinders, and they're communicating back and forth. So there's a what they call a pressure transducer on every cylinder that's feeding back information to the computer.
Hmm.
So on the last cycle, it takes a reading of how long does it take to get to full PSI, right? So if PSI is set to 150 pounds, how long does it take to get to 150 pounds? Okay. So when you first start stretching your bowstring, it takes a long time to get to 150 because it's still stretching, right? It's still moving. But once that movement is out of that bowstring and that bowstring bundle is compact, it doesn't take very long to get to 150. It's like, "Pew," done. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
So through pre-cycle, you can imagine that, like a solo cam bow that has a 100-inch bowstring versus a Matthews bow that has a 64-inch bowstring. It takes more time for that 100-inch bowstring than it does that 64-inch bowstring. You follow me?
Yes.
Um, so with pre-cycle, there's no set time that bowstring is going to sit there. When the computer acknowledges that it reached 3 consecutive time over pressure in a row, it turns that air cylinder off because we know that that bowstring can't move anymore. And it
Okay.
doesn't it doesn't just see static tension, it sees a variation of tension over time. So, thinking of it like a wave, right? So, we start out at, 300 pounds, but then we
Hmm.
go up 700 pounds, and then we relax. And then we go to 400 pounds, and relax, and 500 pounds and relax. So it's doing a wave of different tensions over different times
Hmm.
to get that bowstring, the I call it a memory. And I kind of use the analogy of, if you take a stainless steel wire rope and you try to untwist it, it wants to go right back to the same spot. And that's what I'm able to achieve with pre-cycle and bowstrings is because I've created a memory in that fiber and it just wants to go back to that spot. So when you install a set of bowstrings, you get your timing close, go shoot it a half dozen times just to kind of get everything settled, and
Hmm.
then check your timing, make a half twist here or whatever you need to do to get it. But you never have to worry about that bowstring coming out of time again. It's done. You know, I mentioned earlier my personal bow, my target bow. Um, I've not lost an ounce of poundage in 3 years. The timing is still the same timing as it was the day that I put them on and tuned it. So back to that shooting, I've got confidence in my equipment. I don't have to worry about that. It's not in the back of my head going, did something move? Did something stretch? I don't have to worry about that. Um,
Yeah.
and and that was the whole point of starting A3 Archery.
Yeah, confidence is kind of key when it comes to any, especially in the shooting sports. So I'm a firearms instructor, and I've noticed that we have some debates sometimes, and I also teach for an online college as well. And one of the debates that we have a lot is, should you create, let's say, like a attack driver for someone who is incapable of that type of accuracy right now, right there? It's, should you do it, right? And I want to take a moment to talk about something that has transformed my approach to hunting. That's mock scrapes. I was introduced to the Scrape Doctor system 2 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, and let me tell you, it changed my game. If you're looking to dive into mock scrapes or just need a fresh perspective, I highly recommend checking out scrapedoctor.com. Their insights have been invaluable, and it's been great to see how my skills have developed since that first meeting. What's more, our relationship has blossomed into a fantastic friendship. And to celebrate that, I want to share an exclusive deal with you. Use code countryfried15 at scrapedoctor.com to save 15% on your purchase. Trust me, you won't regret it. And so one of the side I debate is like, well, here's the thing. Let's talk about confidence for a second, because if they go out and they don't have any confidence in the firearm that they have, and they go out, are they going to shoot it more or less? The answer is they're going to shoot it less because they don't have any confidence in it. They don't, there's confidence gone. They don't want to do it. Right. But then if you give them something that you show them, or you have created something to give them the confidence to know that this firearm, or let's say this bow or this bowstring or whatever we want to throw in this shooting part, once they have the confidence in this, then they're going to shoot a little bit more, and they're going to start to see things that they're not going to want to automatically blame the firearm for their mistakes. They're not going to blame their bow for their mistakes. Well, my string must have stretched. That's why I'm having a bad day. No, really, it's you, right? So you're kind of
Yeah,
taking those variables out, but you're also giving them confidence in that, so that they don't spend time chasing like ghosts. Basically, they're not chasing their sights like we talked earlier. They're not chasing this, or they're not chasing that. Like, oh, I'm high today, let's raise up the sight a little bit, right? They're not chasing this all the time. So no, that makes total sense, and the confidence is key. Confidence and consistency when it comes to being, precise, is consistency really is above all. But you have to have confidence in that, so you're not
that's
chasing things, so you remain consistent.
that's right.
So
Um, and then, we can go into materials too, John. I
oh,
mean,
I
um,
want to go into materials, like, in the worst kind of way,
yeah,
because there's so many materials out there, and you know more than I do, and I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I know everything about, bowstring making, because I really know nothing about it. I know that I get a set, I put them on my bow, I go out, and like you said, I go out, I shoot before I even touch anything, right? I don't even put a peep sight in at this point. I put a set on, I go out, and for 3 feet from a huge target, I kind of point shoot at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen times. Once I've done that, then I'll come in, then I'll put my peep in and stuff. Then I'll start working with it at that point, to kind of dial it in. But like you said, before I started getting into this myself, I 200 shots in, I'm like, okay, I got to go back to the bow shop now. Hey, I've got 200 shots in this. Can you just double check the timing and
mhm.
anything, just to make sure we're still good, right? So I get that, but
Do
that's
you know what we
as
used to
far as I
do?
know.
Do you know what we used to do with a new set of bowstrings? We would put them on a draw board, right, full draw, and put an arrow in it and let them sit there for like 3 days. You know, but with pre-cycle, with the different materials, I mean, I we don't do that no more. I mean, that was something we did, shooting regular bowstrings from, mass manufactured companies. But
So let me ask you this then. So with that process, because I know, but when you go to draw this, eventually you're going to get into the let off period of the bow, right? So you're going to get into that 10 to 12 pounds of pressure. So when you're doing that, did you just draw it back to where you reached peak draw weight and then just stopped it there and set it at peak draw weight, or did you come all the way through to full
oh,
draw?
no, I'd let it sit at whatever the bow was, 60 pounds.
Okay.
My indoor bow was 70 pound for a hunting bow, whatever the case is. Um, But yeah, man, let's take a deep dive in material. I mean, there's so many materials out there. There's a company that's trying to come back. Brownell is trying to come back. Not too sure they're going to make it. Um, I think the son of the company is trying to do something, um, but for so long, 452X has been the staple
Hmm.
of bow building. I mean, BCY when they did 452X, I mean, they sold it as the best, and it was the best performing fiber on the market, um, for years and years, right?
Hmm.
Then Beltline come on the scene and kinda changed it up a little bit, I mean, why would I shoot something that I gotta continuously wax,
Hmm.
when I can shoot something that never needs a wax? I mean, it stays clean, you know, it's faster, it's more durable, it's water repellent, it's got a UV inhibitor in it that keeps the sunlight from damaging the strings. I mean, it's just a phenomenal product. Um, you mentioned earlier with Bloodline and being like slippery or, I call it greasy is what it used to be with the VEC 99. And the reason for that is the Vectran fiber, the 33% of Vectran in the fiber, the coating and the pigments don't like to stick to it. Like, they don't adhere. So you have that coating and that pigment that doesn't stick to the fiber, and that's what ends up giving you that greasy feeling, and where people are having a hard time tying peep sights in. You got some serving separation issues going on. Um, but when you go to the B99 fiber, all of those issues go away because it's 100% Dyneema. So the coating and the pigment actually sticks and adheres to the fiber, and I mean, it's the Ferrari. It is literally the Ferrari of bowstring fiber.
Well, we will dive into that. And I want to go back to BC because BCY is like it's like everyone knows that's the material that everybody uses, right? If you ask anybody, and even some are starting to get into like mixtures of BCY, like they're working with them, like, hey, this proprietary blend. And you probably know more about this than I do, but you hear them like, we work with them, we came up with this proprietary blend for
Yeah,
whatever system we want to throw out there
um,
and out there. So let's talk about them. Why were they king for so long?
well, I mean, they were the first real fiber producer other than Brownell. Um, I mean, they were the top of their game. I mean, that's who made bowstring fiber. When when we went from cables being made of stainless steel to cables being made of fiber, I mean that those were the people who did it. So they were kind of the stepping stone of the evolution of bowstrings and archery, and that's what made them king. I mean, they did a really good job with it, and they still produce a phenomenal product today. I
Mhm.
mean, between 452X or extra to X99 to 8120, you know, um, I mean, they still make Dynaflight 97. I mean, um, they still just make really good products. I mean, they're still at the top of their game, but they're still a waxed fiber. You still have to apply wax to them, and that's where Bloodline is beating them out because it's a waxless product. And we talked about temperature and wax, and the other thing that a wax product, you know, it attracts dust and dirt, right? Dust and dirt stick to it. So then you got the issue of, external and internal abrasion from dust and dirt, right? So when that bowstring is shot, that bowstring actually kind of balloons a little bit and comes back. If you watch a high speed photo or video, it
Mhm.
balloons and then it comes back. So all that dirt that's on the outside is now on the inside. So you
Mhm.
got internal abrasion and external abrasion both to worry about. So when you get rid of the wax, you get rid of the weight, you get rid of that dirt and grime getting stuck to them and having to wax them, which is going to increase your speed and your performance as well.
Now I've heard somebody say this, and this is stuff that's out there, and I'm sure you've heard it. You probably had a difference of opinion in this, but I've heard somebody say this before that you shouldn't wax your bowstrings, and they're not talking about bloodline. They're actually talking like a BCY product, like you shouldn't wax them,
And
and
I've heard that.
never,
I've heard it both
never
ways.
wax.
I've heard it both ways, and back when I shot a wax product, I never waxed them. But just because I just don't want the maintenance. I mean, that was, you know, I don't want the excess wax to affect my performance in the field, whether it be hot or cold. So I never waxed them. I would literally take a piece of string and double up and try to get all the wax out that I could. Just
Mhm.
squeeze and scrape it to try to get all the wax out of it, just because I didn't want it to affect my
Because
performance. But
yeah, because the variations it would create, then as we talked about, like, and
that's
we're talking
correct.
about we're talking about a very deep level of precision though at that point, right? Because I guess I don't know. That's why I'm saying like you get to that, you're talking about really super precision at that. Like we're from a 30x game to like a maybe a 300 with 20x's, or am I like way off on that? Like, or is it
Well,
really affect more than that?
you're not way off, but one thing that tournament shooting will teach you, especially indoors, is you're always striving for that perfection, whether you're indoor shooting,
Well,
you're
no.
3D, or you're shooting at an animal, right?
Hmm.
Um, I do a lot of hunting out west, and so my shots are a lot further than the guy shooting in Ohio or Mississippi. I'm not shooting that 20 or 30-yard shot. I might be shooting a muley at 72.
Hmm.
You know, learning, the indoor game teaches you really how to aim. I mean, and putting it where it counts, and precision is part of that. So I don't want to
Absolutely.
take a I don't want to take a jump shot at a 72-yard muley if I'm not 100% confident that I can make that shot ethically.
Right. No, I,
So
I agree. I agree with you. And unfortunately, I think there's too many people that are ignorant to that. They don't know. Like, and it's they just say ignorance is bliss, and people don't know what they don't know. Like if they don't know this, it doesn't bother them. But once you learn it, you're like, oh, all of a sudden now there's a whole new
Yeah,
window open up of things to think about. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, was 7 or 8 years ago, I took a shot on a muley across like this big valley. I mean, big deep gorge. I mean, I had to climb down and up the other side to go get him, but it was 76 yards across, and I shot him through two trees this big, this far apart. They were like 12 inches apart. 76-yard shot in the rain. You know, I mean, you got to be extremely confident in your equipment and your ability to be able
Hmm.
to do that. So, you know, but that's what indoor archery gave me was the ability to aim.
Yeah, I don't poo poo on indoor archery because that is you're talking about the masters of execution at that point, like because of the precision that's needed. That you need to be consistent with the execution. Your equipment needs to be consistent. Everything needs to be on point for that to work out for you at that level.
Well,
Yeah, I
you
don't
watch
poo poo on it at all.
you watch these guys in Vegas. You know, they we just finished Vegas up, and you watch them shoot a 300 round, and it looks like the same arrow went in the same hole every single time. You know,
Hmm.
precision. You know, and that's what we do. You know, yeah, it takes a lot, but um, you had mentioned earlier different, like, proprietary blending of material. To be honest with you, I'm just gonna call a bunch of big BS on that, because if that were true, BCY would have already done it already.
Okay.
So, I you know, that's just
Yeah.
my feeling. I've looked at the material, I've seen the material, I'm just gonna call BS. So,
Listen, you know more about it than I do. You when you're looking at it and seeing it, and and even as a consumer, sometimes you're like, okay, is really, or is this just like a bunch of like consumer buzzwords that to get us to
it
buy this?
it's all to be honest, it's all marketing. It's
Mhm.
marketing and advertising. I've got something that somebody else doesn't have, and 9 times out of 10, they got exactly what you have, they're just marketing in a different way.
Mark, yeah, that's a shame.
It really is. You know, we watched a company this or last year launch something, and they claimed that their bowstring had more elasticity, which was increasing speeds. Well, that just completely defies the rules of physics.
Hmm.
So anytime you increase elasticity, you're soaking up energy that could be put forth,
Hmm.
right? So when
Hmm.
I build bowstrings especially with the bloodline, the way that I build them, I'm actually increasing the axial stiffness of the string. Okay. If I was to decrease the axial stiffness, I would be creating elasticity. But by increasing the axial stiffness, I'm actually increasing the amount of energy that the string can transfer to the shaft, hence producing faster feet per second.
Yes, that make all right. I'm tracking what you're saying now. I'm listening and I'm running that through my head. That makes that make yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
I
That's
a
the
way to look at that is if I had a rubber band and I'm shooting sticks with it versus I had a hard string that I'm shooting sticks with, that hard string is going to go further than the rubber band because the rubber band is going to soak up energy and not transfer
mhm.
it.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's where I was tracking that, and I think that's where I was going with that kind of. But that does make sense because there's so much energy that gets lost because of that stretch that's inside that it's taking up so much of that energy. You don't want it to stretch, and that's yeah. That doesn't hmm, hmm. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. But so let's dive into Bloodline because I gotta be honest. When I got on the website and I was looking at everything, and I seen you're not, and we'll get into more of this here in a minute. But I looked at there was like a premium, and then there was what was the other one?
Platinum.
Platinum. There's a platinum and premium, and so I was looking between the two. And is the platinum, is that the bloodline or
Yep,
yep,
that's
so
the
that's your
bloodline.
bloodline? And I clicked on the platinum. I seen it was bloodline, and I'll be honest with you, because of what we just discussed, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll just stick with the premium, with the BCY, just basically because of what I've heard about the bloodline before and about how, you know, some of the issues that But when I say issues, I say quote unquote issues. So let's dive into Bloodline. Why, sounds like you've got some really good confidence in Bloodline and what they're doing right now. So let's get that out.
Yeah, I mean, so when Bloodline first came on scene and I started using their products, the owner and I, we kind of immediately became kind of bonded there, um, and we just started. We started working together, and hey, this coating's a little bit thick. What can we do to get rid of it, or how can we make it better? And then it got better, and then we evolved into the B99 when I started testing that stuff, and um, it was just phenomenal, a phenomenal product. Um, and so you got to imagine that when this was all started, I was 100% BCY 452X. That's the only thing that I built with. Like, you couldn't beat it. Like, you know, and then you fast forward to today, I probably sell 99% bloodline. I mean, my customer base, they want bloodline, they don't want BCY. You know, they just keep coming back. I mean, bloodline, bloodline, bloodline. And for reasons that we've already talked about, it's waxless, it's water repellent. You don't have temperature or humidity swings with it. The colors are consistent. Um, and another thing people like is when we build with 452 extra or 452X, you're getting 24 strands in a bundle. When we build the bloodline, the B99, we're getting 32 strands.
So
So
10 less.
so you're getting a rounder profile string versus 24 strands. And believe it or not, you can actually feel that in your draw cycle
Okay.
because it's
How
rounded.
so?
It's
How
rounder.
okay.
Uh, So you can actually feel that in the draw cycle. We have people say, "Man, my bow feels so much smoother now," and I think that's the reason. Um,
Now, does
then
that come out heavier than a comparable BCY string then, or is it because of the string
there is.
count?
There is. There's a material called mercury, that's 100% Dyneema, same diameters and all that, but it's waxed. You gotta keep it waxed.
Okay.
So there is a comparable fiber, and yeah, it's called mercury.
Okay. Well, I guess what I was getting at, so because we know that weight can affect the speed of the bowstring, right? And it's
Mhm.
one of the things. We add these speed buttons. You put on your kisser, you put on this, you put on that. You're adding weight to the string, therefore it's starting to slow it down. So you're going to lose feet per second. All right. That's a magical term everybody wants to talk about these days is feet per second. All right, fine. So I guess the question was, so then if you're running with the bloodline, so if you say like I get a bloodline versus a BCY, string for same bow from you. So say like this for the Elite Exalt 35, right? So I get these from you. Is the bloodline a little bit heavier then?
No,
Or
it's lighter.
is it still lighter then, even with a
It's
higher
light
string count? Okay.
it's lighter, you're gonna get more speed out of it, more performance out of it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now that makes sense.
typically a guy going from, a 452X to a bloodline fiber B99, we typically see about 6 feet per second.
Okay.
If you're average, draw length and 70 pounds, you see that. But the biggest thing is what if you got that guy that's got a 27-inch draw length, you know, he could use a few extra feet per second.
Yeah.
And that's where bloodline comes in at. You're gonna get a few feet per second quicker, even at your shorter draw length. So um, I I'll stand on a pedestal all day long and preach bloodline. I mean, it is literally been a game changer in the archery industry.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of pros to that bloodline. So if you're going to take the cons between if you want to go down this route, we can. So what are some cons between the BCY versus bloodline? Like so what are some cons of BCY? What are some cons of the bloodline?
Well,
And
I
maybe
mean,
it's just a string maker thing. Maybe bloodline's a little bit harder to work with for you because of
it
certain things.
that's what I was going to go with was, you know, the 452, the BCY products, they're a whole lot quicker to build with. I'll
Okay.
say that off the gate. The bloodline, because it has no wax, it has no stickiness to it, and it's 32 strands in a bowstring. It does take some finesse to work with it. It's not as fast. to build with. Um, but I think the offset of that is you're getting a better bowstring building with it, so it's worth the time.
Well, when it comes to premium stuff, like it's a labor of love, and it's also like you don't want to take shortcuts. If you take shortcuts and you run into some issues there, and if you're gonna put time and effort into something, for the most part, it probably is going to be a better product. In the end. So let's talk a little bit about the process then. So obviously you've been working with this, and you don't have to give away too much of the secret sauce if you don't want to. I totally understand that. Like everyone has their way of doing things. It sounds like you have a very innovative way of dealing with the stretch with the pre-stretching, all the pre-work coming into it, how you get to a certain point once you get all the elongation kind of out of the string to where it's there, right? And
Well,
set to get that
I'm gonna
bundle as tight as possible.
so to make things correct, you're never gonna get rid of elongation.
Okay.
That's part of the bowstring. You kind of want that,
Hmm.
but what you're getting rid of. So when I lay a bowstring up, if you can imagine, two. Um, we call them a four post, right? You got two posts like this, and on the opposing side, you got two posts like that, and we go, around and around and around of them, and then we serve you loops in the middle. Okay.
Hmm.
But that process starts like we lay them out, and then my posts actually get tensioned. So they actually get tensioned before we serve loops. So the bundle is getting a little extra. Then we go from there. We go back. We go to the machine. They get tensioned to 100 pounds. 100 and I think it's 120 pounds. Um, we separate the colors, we put your peep string in, and we twist it under that 100 and 20 pounds, and then it goes. We burnish it. So like I don't know if you know what burnishing is, but basically we wrap a thread around it and burnish the bowstring. So we're stripping any excess wax, anything, trying to get that bundle to compact.
Okay.
Then it goes to stretching, which is our pre-cycle technology. So we put it on the hooks and, we hit the magic button. I can see some pictures and videos of, you know, so pre-cycle today is completely digital. It's all on a touch screen, it's
Hmm.
all touch screen. So we hit the button and the pre-cycle starts and it stops, when it um, gets its readings correctly. Um, but then after that, we take it back to the machines and then we place it under about 500 pounds of tension, which is um, way more than what most people can put, okay? So,
Yeah.
I've upgraded my equipment, and I've built a lot of the equipment that allows me to do that. So the bowstrings are under about 500 pounds of tension while they get served. So and, the one machine that we have here, was actually made by Bloodline.
Hmm.
Um, it actually serves at 4,000 RPMs. It's small.
So let me ask you this then. So all right, so I'm assuming this is just in my mind, right? So when you stretch, when not stretch, you put it under pressure, right? And you have that 500 pounds of pressure. You're getting the bundle is probably super tight, right? It's super tight when you go to serve this, so that when you release the pressure, please correct me if I'm wrong. When that pressure gets released, then that bundle's kind of going to swell a little bit, so that it actually helps hold that serving a little better. Am I tracking there, or it
You
has
you're
nothing to
sort
do
of
with that?
you are sort of tracking. It's not gonna it serves so tight that it can't move.
Okay.
Um, it can't, like, reinflate, if you would. Um, you'll see it at the ends of the serving sometimes. If I serve too tight, you'll see it at the ends of the serving. It'll kinda when it's fully relaxed, it'll kinda puff at the end of it. It'll kinda make like
Okay.
a little puff ball, and that means I served it too tight and it's done incorrectly. So I'll strip the serving and reserve it at that point.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it is as tight as it can get, so you ever see somebody that has like around their cam, they'll have serving separation.
Hmm.
Well, that's because the bundle was not compacted and they served it tight as hell, but then the bundle got compacted more after being shooting and now the serving got loose.
Mm,
That's where you see that separation is because the bundle actually compacted and the serving is left, loose. So you see that separation. That's why you see that.
yeah, I'm glad you answered that, 'cause what I did have a question. That was a question I had for you, because I've seen this on a couple of different we won't say it. I've had I've had I've had some issues with some cables down with the end servings down to loops that kept wanting to come undone.
Mhm.
And then I'm so I and it's I've been through several different manufacturers, and I always get center serving separation. Always get center serving separation.
So
Always.
depends on the material that they use. Um, a lot of builders use some very inexpensive material when it comes to
Hmm.
center, and you get that. Um, the only center serving that I use in the shop is what they call power grip,
Hmm.
and it's made by BCY, but it is by far, bar none, the best center serving that you can use. It's a little bit more expensive, but
Hmm.
better, far more expensive, right? So, um, and that goes to like the in servings, right? So I've swapped everything to the new BOA, um, or what is now called. They just launched a new one. It's not available in all colors, but it's called the Cobra braid. And if you thought Halo was good, the new Cobra braid is it's stronger, it's grippier,
Hmm.
um, it's amazing. I mean, it is. I never thought anything could beat Halo serving, but Bloodline came out with the Boa Ice 2 years ago, and it beat Halo. And now they just come out with the Cobra Braid, and it beats their own Boa Ice. It's phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And we talked about that bowstring being stretched and then served. So if you think about it, because I put that thing under 500 pounds, I'm getting about another. So if I stretched it at what most people do, 350, 400 pounds, I get about an eighth of an inch, 3/16 of an inch of stretch or elongation, maybe a quarter, depending on the length of the string or cable.
Hmm.
But when I go to 500 pounds, I get another eighth of an inch. Okay. And I'm putting more serving on the bowstring because I'm stretching it further, which is going to mitigate separation issues down the road. You
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
so
I see what you're saying.
I'm stretching it further, so I'm getting another 15, 20% of serving on the bowstring than what your typical guy can get.
So here's one of the things like I've never been able to wrap my brain around. Right. So in maybe if I built strings, I'd understand it a little bit better. But how do you when they give you specs for this, how do you what's the secret sauce, or what is it to where you actually build it to the actual length that it has to be? Like I can't, like you have all these strings and then you got to twist all these strings together and then you got to try to serve this thing and then all of a sudden it's got to be 34 and 3 whatever it is, 34 and 3/4, 70 64 and 5/8 of an inch. How do you hit that and still have the proper twist rate and all that? Like what's the is it just trial and error till you get it right and then you know what the sauce is, or do you kind of have a good formula for that?
No, I built a formula years back that because the formula is not how do you I guess linear would be the right word because you got a twist ratio, but then you also have a stretch ratio, and the stretch ratio changes depending on the length of the string of the cable, right?
Hmm.
So if I got something longer, it's going to stretch more. If I've got something shorter, it's going to stretch less, right? At the end of the day. Um, so I actually built a really unique Excel spreadsheet that takes the length of the string um, to value and comes out with the layout length that I need to set my post at to get that. And I typically hit the measurements within a 30-second, probably 99.9% of the time.
Well, I
So
mean, you can't get any more precise than that. I mean, 30 seconds pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't
well,
know if a
people
ruler gets a 30-second, to be honest with you.
people come in the shop and they watch me build, and they're like, "Man, how does that come out to the exact measurement? No matter what you do." And I'm like, "That just it's in the formula."
I'm just that good. That's what it is. That's the one thing.
No,
I'm sitting here. I don't build strings, but then you see some of the videos and they don't show everything, but you kind of watch that and you kind of see where you got these posts and you got to do these twisting and things. Like, how do you know how much material do you need to get it to that length, because you have to have the, you can't, you don't, you want the proper amount of twist put in it, right? You want a certain amount of stretch, all these things that kind of go into this. Like that's like
But
above my my algebraic math level. So
but but no matter, like, if I'm using Bloodline, the B99 or 452 or Dynaflight or BC or B55, or Rev 99, or I mean, all the different materials I have in the shop, the formula is different for every one of them. None of them are the same. Twist rates
yeah,
are different. Stretch rates are different. I mean, you build something with B55 for like a longbow, like an old school longbow. Um, I mean, that stuff stretches like bubble gum. I mean,
mm,
literally, like, I can put a 40-inch bowstring up there and throw it on 100 pounds of tension. It'll gain an inch and a half. Woo! It's like bubble gum. But like I said, every fiber is different when it comes to stretch rate, twist rate, and how much it's going to give at the end.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's mind-boggling for me. Like, I'm like, I'm just glad you can do it. I'm like, yeah, here's what I need.
Well, and and the different the like when you jump into crossbows, we jump into like HT99 or Dynaflight 97. The fiber is thicker, right? It's like twice or three times the thickness of like the bloodline stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and it takes more strands, right? So instead of 24 strands, I might be running 28 or 30. Um, so by running more strands, the twist profile, the twist rate changes because I've got more strands and I physically can't twist it that much or to start like knotting up on you. So
Okay.
there's a lot of math and a lot of calculations that go into, building a bowstring. People try to like, oh, I'm gonna build my own bowstrings, and it turns to failure really, really fast, because
Yeah.
for one, they've wasted their money on all this equipment and they can't figure it out, and so now they're trying to sell it or get rid of it or just put it in mom's basement. I mean, it's a
You
lot
know,
of it's a lot of math that goes into it.
I'm happy spending $150, $160 on a new set of strings and cables. I'm good with that. Like, I have noticed, like, I'll build my own arrows and stuff. Like, I'll do all this. Like, I do my own tuning and things. I do not want to make my own strings. I have no desire to do it at all because I'm like, I don't know if I'd figure that out. I'd end up with like, I'd start off like, well, I need a 60-inch string. I'd end up with like a 120-inch string and have no idea how I did it. And then I come and do it again. I want to put 30-inch string. I'm like, okay, I give up. I'm done.
Yeah,
Um, so, and this is kind of way off topic. Well, not really. Crossbows. And I'm not anti crossbow. I'm not that person. I just not that. My question I have for you is only because I've heard of this, right? Don't have to name brands, don't have to name anything. I've heard that with some of the crossbows out there, they actually are recommending a string swap, like not very far into the life cycle of the string. Like
Raven.
we're talking like, I don't know what are they recommending? Because
Every 6 months.
every 6 months, right? So is that, do they give like a shot count? Because I've heard it. I've heard it. I don't know people. I'm speculating, and maybe I'm spreading a false rumor, and I need to shut up before I say it. But I've heard it was like as much as low as like 25 to 50 shots, and then they're like, yeah,
It's,
you need to.
I don't know the exact count, but I know that they say change your strings every 6 months, and you have to buy them from them so that they know that you bought them from them, so that your
Mhm.
warranty is still valid.
So that when
Now,
your boat does blow up,
yeah, it's not if it blows up, it's when it's going to blow up. um,
that's kind
well,
of like going to Brazil. Like it's like not if you get mugged, it's when you get mugged.
yeah, yeah. So I built a ton of Raven crossbow strings,
Hmm.
and I mean, knock on wood, I haven't had any complaints about any kind of failures or anything like that. So, I mean, I don't know who builds their crossbow strings, but I don't know. I build them with B99. I've actually had to make some specialized jigs to make those little short cables because those little cables aren't, they're only like, I forget what they are, 8 inches, 9 inches.
Yeah.
Um, so they're super small. Like I said, I had to build some specialty jigs just to be able to make them. But I
Mhm.
built a ton of them.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor, and I figured I'd ask. You're a string maker. You might know a little bit more on that than I do. So every 6 months, I'm gonna let my one buddy know he's got a Raven. Like, hey, make sure you change those strings out.
Yeah, they
There's a lot of pressure in those things. You can't hit the 500 or whatever it is feet per second that they're hitting without putting a lot of pressure
well,
on that string, on that whole system.
if you take a Raven crossbow that's not cocked and just feel the cables and the string, they're already under a tremendous amount of pressure to
Hmm.
start with. They're at brace, they're at resting, you know. Then you put them at full load, and it's like, my goodness, you know. I had one just about take my thumb off while I had it in the bow press changing strings and cables. I mean, those things are monsters, man.
Well, so let's dive in a little bit here. So let's talk about care of the strings, right? So we talked a little bit already. Like, some people said like, hey, let's you don't necessarily have to wax strings, because if they start looking fuzzy, it's probably getting to the point where you need to replace them anyways. I've heard that. I've heard people that like I wax the crap out of my stuff because I don't want issues, because if I don't wax it, then it's going to stretch more. That's one thing I've heard too, is that if I don't wax it, it's going to stretch more. Maybe you can touch on that, because we just said it's not necessarily stretching you're seeing, but we can maybe hit on that. Yeah, just overall care of the strings.
So if we look at a wax product like a 452 extra, you know, um, the things that you see fuzzing up is going to be the Vectran that's in the 452 extra,
Okay.
because it typically tends to break down before the Dyneema does. So, you know, it's okay to put, if you're just the average backyard shooter or 3D tournament shooter, it is okay to put some wax on a bowstring, but don't go overboard with it. You know, what I try to tell people is just lightly put it on the string and then take their index finger and their thumb and just rub it on there, get it kind of warm with your fingers, trying to get it in the fibers, and leave it at that. Don't wax your serving. The serving does not need to be waxed, just the bowstring fiber. Um, Wax it up, decently. If you think you might have a little excess, take you some serving thread or you know some sort of cotton string and kind of scrape down the string and just trying to take the excess off. Um, if you start seeing excess like fraying, or it might take a deeper look. Is Do I actually have a thread that's partially cut? Is that why it's fraying?
Hmm.
Um, you know, Wax doesn't fix everything, but it can definitely prolong the life of the bowstring if it's used properly. Um, B99 fiber, unless you're carrying the bow by its bowstring, carrying it through the field by its bowstring, or you rub it up against a pine tree or a barbed wire fence or something, the fiber is never really going to fray. It's not going to get fuzzy. It's not going to get fray. Um, I will say that with me and having a beard, um, where the string contacts my facial hair, I see
Hmm.
a little bit of discoloration right above the center serving,
Hmm.
but other than that, I mean, it's not bad. Bloodline actually makes some, it's called String Max. It's basically their coating, what they coat the fiber
Hmm.
in a bottle. So just take that, put it on a paper towel, and recoat the string and keep on going.
Okay.
So really good product. Um, we go back to stretching, and people are like, "Oh, my builder stretches their bowstrings for overnight." Well, what people don't understand is you can actually physically damage the bowstring by overstretching them. So if your builder's like, "Oh, I'll stretch mine for 10 hours or 12 hours," and he's using something with Vectran in it, that string's not going to last. It'll last 6 months and it's going to be dead because the Vectran is actually broken down.
Mm.
So, the people that say, "Oh, I stretch my bowstrings for a long time," don't buy that product. They're not going to last you very long.
Okay, because I've heard that being the fix. This is why my bowstrings don't rotate, or this is why you don't get as much peep rotation. That's why you don't get as much timing issues, because I have stretched the crap out of these strings for a long period of time. These fibers. So okay, that's
If
handy.
it's got yeah, if it's got Vectran in it, like 452X or extra, the Vectran actually starts breaking down, and that's what you see start fuzzing first is the Vectran breaking down.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. The other thing you said that I was gonna make a smart comment, like, oh, you're not supposed to carry your your bow by the bowstring. I didn't.
No, it's got a handle for a reason.
You know how many people I see do that though? They'll be walking through the field, hold on to their bowstrings. Like, I don't think you want to do that.
So, we got people that hunt out west and that hunt in some pretty rough, climates in Arizona and whatnot, where it's just sandy and gritty. And I'll get these photos sent to me like, why is my bowstring doing this? And it's, right below the center serving, and it's just like shredded. And I'm like, you carry your bow by the string? And he's like, well, yeah. I was like, well,
There you go.
you got gloves on. They're sandy and dirty and nasty, and it's just like sandpaper. And I'm like,
Mhm.
man, but it happens.
And now you know. Don't
Yep.
carry your bow by the bowstring.
I tell
Uh,
people, got a handle for a reason.
so younger Sean, you said something about not serving the, or not, I'm sorry, not waxing the serving. Younger Sean, I did that. This is like we're talking when I first got into bow hunting. It's like I just
Yeah,
waxed everything, the serving,
everything.
everything got it. And then eventually I'm like, I don't know if this is actually helping anything. So then I just started doing just the actual fibers of the string. So and got away from the serving. So I don't think that's helping anything.
But I had a young kid. I say young kid. He's probably 18, 19. He just sent me his bow from Indiana for a restring, and he wanted me to tune it up for him. So he actually shipped his bow to here to Texas to me, so I could fix him up. And when I took that bow out of the case, the wax in the cam grooves, I mean, gobs and gobs and I mean, it took me 30 minutes to clean the cams just to put new strings on it, so they wouldn't look all nasty and junky, And I called him, like, dude, lay off the wax.
Glad you're waxing your string, but maybe not so much, and maybe not there.
Yeah, he was everywhere. I mean, my hands were gunky and sticky, and it was horrible.
Well, I started to notice that, because back when the old cable slides too, that they used to have, and they're still out there. Like that's not like
You talking about the
a
old Teflon sliders?
yeah, it's not like a technology that's not out there anymore. They're still there, right? In some models, but you notice that I started to notice there'd be a buildup on those. I'm like, I don't think that's supposed to be there like that. That's why I quit. That's why I quit. That's why I quit waxing the servings. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to serve. Maybe I don't need to do that. So, so I've
Yeah.
I've gotten into. There's a couple times that I've had to read, and this is a question I have because I know that when I go to reserve, say I reserved a couple of strings before I've had to because I had center serving break or whatever, right? So I cut the start it, unravel it, get it off. Now I've never taken the string off my bow, so I know there's not that much pressure that's actually on the string at this point, but I've reserved that way where it's still on the bow. Um, I don't obviously that's not getting as tight. I mean, what are like some of the watch outs for like something like that? Because
So
I've had to do it a few times.
so when you're serving a center serving, there's a couple. You can do it on the bow. You got to be careful not to over tension your jig, because you can actually build twist underneath the serving.
Okay. Hmm.
Does that makes sense?
Yes.
If your jig is too tight, you can actually, and that's going to cause some issues like, your peep sight may twist a little bit. Um, but I'll say the biggest thing, or the two biggest things, is the material that you're using. Make sure you've got a good center serving type material like power grip.
Yeah, that's what I use.
And then the other thing is look at the way the bowstring is twisted, because not all builders twist the same or twist the same direction. Um, and so if your bowstring is twisted, you know, say from the bottom you look at it, it's twisted to the right. I want to serve against that twist, not with it. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
you want to serve
tracking.
against the twist, and that's going to kind of help you mitigate, not untwisting the bowstring underneath the serving,
Okay.
which is going to give you an unstable bundle or an unstable string, and there's no telling where that peep sight's going to land at, um, between each shot. So, um, material, tension, and definitely twisting against or serving against the twist of the bowstring. Um, those are three big ones. If you have the ability to remove the bowstring and put that bowstring under a couple 100 pounds of tension, you'll have
Hmm.
a lot more. Um, a lot greater chance that you won't have an issue, going forward.
Yeah.
Just because when I put it under 300, 400 pounds of tension, it kind of mitigates the likelihood of building twist underneath that serving because it can't.
Yeah, I might look in building something to give the, I don't know, something as crude as possible to like couple eye hooks or something to
I know
add.
people that do it with a couple, yeah, they do it with a couple eye hooks S hooks and a
Mhm.
ratchet strap. So just a
Just
simple,
something.
thing, just um, there's a if you go to Granger, there's some calibrated compression springs that you can buy as well. Um, and I don't want to dive too deep into it because
Yeah.
it'll take a minute, but I can show you the configuration between the compression spring and how to tighten a string with it. Um, that'll get you a little bit better measurable poundage because
Okay.
they're calibrated by the length of compression, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, we'll
So
definitely. And I'm interested in that because I've had to do it a couple times, and I've always done it on the bow. Not really had a lot of issues with it. I think I've got one that's most recent one I did. I think it's starting to separate already. So I don't know if I got it tight enough or what happened there. But
and then I see a lot of separation issues with serving no matter what they use. Um, if they're tying, knock points
Mhm.
and they really dig in with that knock point, if they're
Okay.
using 3D material or whatever, or if they really dig into it, because knock points aren't made to be super tight. Okay.
Okay.
They're, they're made to be there so you know where your D loop goes or where your knock point goes. But if they really pull tight, it'll
Mhm.
separate every time.
Okay.
And you won't see it until you take it off, and then I've got separation issues, so, that's another big one that I see a lot is people tying knock points or knock sets, and they tie 'em in too
Great.
tight.
They got Hulk
Or
them on there.
well, and I see it with D-loops too. Some people just really wanna crimp down on that D-loop pliers, and they separate the serving underneath the D-loop, and you can't really see it until you start having a problem.
Yeah, I've noticed. I noticed that when I start to notice what if it's happening is I'll get knock pinch. I'll start to get like severe knock pinch because normally I'll leave enough to where the knock will move a little bit. Usually, like if somebody will say, if you look at it and you see the strands of the serving, I maybe one, two, maybe sometimes maybe three strands of serving, separation between like the top of my knock and the top of my D loop. I try that as much. So,
Um, I I I typically leave an eighth of an inch is what an eighth of an inch of play
mhm,
in between, as a rule of thumb that fits just about any bow out there. Um, that's just always been my rule of thumb, eighth of an inch. Um, but then knock fit is another thing that can cause issues.
yes,
If your knock's too tight or if your knock's too loose. God forbid it's too loose because then you're actually dry firing. You're partially dry firing your bow every time you shoot it if your knock's too
mhm,
loose.
yeah.
Um, which that can cause a whole world of mess. Speed knocks start sliding and sliding into cams, and it's a whole nasty limbs crack. I mean, it could get real nasty if it goes on for a long enough time.
So one usually my test is I'll take a knock or I'll take an arrow and then I won't pull. I'll just barely pull on the string enough to put a little bit of tension in it, and I'll let it go. And if it comes off, then I know, if it can, if, how do I say this? If it comes off, then I'm usually good at that point. So it's at least it comes off at that. So, but it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure for it to come off. But also, like if I go to move and it slips off, that's not it's not tight enough because
But
there's a problem.
typically, I'll take the bow, put it in there, and just kind of hold it with the string, horizontal, and I'll tap that string, and if it falls off, it's too loose.
Okay,
You know,
that's probably a better
um,
way of doing it. Say explaining what I was just trying to say.
yeah, yeah. Um, you want that knock to fit that center serve, and you want that good crisp, click.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't want a whole lot of rotational movement. A little bit is okay if I take
Hmm.
and turn the arrow. A little bit is okay, but if I got a lot, it's too much. Um, you also don't want, if I take that knock and spin it around, I don't want the string to be twisting with it. I want it to just be spinning freely, right?
Yeah.
And being able to move up and down the serving. with ease, no restriction, and that's typically a perfect fit. What I do here is I've got every knock that's ever been made by every company out there, and if you tell me you got a Luminock or a Boning F or an or a Easton Super Knock, in the order form, it says it specifies what knock are you using.
Mhm.
I actually fit your center serving to your knock.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna ask you that because I didn't get too far in the form. I was gonna ask you, like, how do you address that? Like, because I know, do you ask what knock they're using so then you know exactly how much what size center serving you want to throw on there? So yeah.
and a lot of people, are just using factory knocks. They're not using much special, which probably 95% of the knocks out there today are a 110 to 112 fit, and that's just one. But if we go to an IP knock, the AAE IP knock, or we go to a biter hunter, you know, um, or we go to like this new boning knock that just come out. It's got a 120 through, huge through.
Whew.
Um, those that's what I need to know so I can make it fit.
Yeah, I shoot
Yeah,
IP5.
it's a
Well,
119 throat. Is that new boning knock? A 119 throat,
oh,
huge.
yeah, that's pretty big because I don't think the IPs. I forget what they are.
IPs are small. They're super small.
Yeah, like I said, they're not very big. I know how to get one of the smaller center servings to actually to work, um,
With the
when I go
IP,
to build or not
so
build, but read center.
Power Grip just changed. It seems like they changed their diameters of their Power Grip. Like if I go back a few years ago, 14 like 014 Power Grip was my serving of choice, and I could get a 110, 112 fit out of it, which fits any knock out there. And now that same fit is now an 018. And now the last pound of Power Grip, um, 018 doesn't fit anymore. I've had to go up to 21 to get the same
Oh,
fit. So like their diameters are shifting to they're not true anymore. So like some of the 018 that I've got, I've been having to do 018 with a backer underneath it to meet diameter.
mm.
It's been kind of difficult here lately.
Yeah, and sometimes is that something where you can kind of run like a tail back down through as you're doing your cert to help with the diameter of that? I've heard
Yeah,
that too.
we call it a backer is
Back,
what we
okay.
call it. Yeah, we call it a backer. We can run a tail or even two tails under it if we need to get it to pump up a little bit more.
Well, if we get ready to close this out, I got a few other. I want to cover at least this here. What are some of the mistakes that you see people doing with their strings? Like, and we would like to thank you for your support of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, then please check out our online store at bonfire.com. There, you can purchase exclusive Chasing Your Experience podcast t-shirts and hoodies for all members of your family. Check out the link down in the description to find the store. And now, back to the pod. I know it's always best to go to a dealer to have your strings put on, but the more and more people are starting to get into the do-it-yourself type. So they're getting their own presses, they're getting their own things to kind of do these things. I'm one of those people. Just because it's you learn more about the bow, and I think you have more of appreciation of archery of how it works if you actually dive in and start doing this stuff, and to tune it to yourself, right? And get if you want to get down that weed. So what are some of the big mistakes, the top mistakes you see people doing with strings and cables when they go to replace them or whatever it is that they're doing with them?
So if it's a do-it-yourself at home guy that's got him a press and he's trying to learn it, the number one mistake that I see people make is they put the peep in the bowstring and they pull it back and they grab that peep and they push it up or they pull it down to get it to line up to their eye. Um, that's the number one problem I see because what that does is so say I put the peep in there and I pull it back and it's got to move down and they just grab that peep and they pull it down.
Mm-hmm.
What they've just done is they've increased the twist ratio between the center serving and their peep, and they've decreased the twist ratio above the peep. And that's going to cause constant rotation problems. So, what I always tell people is don't put the peep in. You got the peep string that I put in for you. Pull
Mm-hmm.
the bow ball, pull that peep string, or get somebody to pull that peep string down a little bit till it gets close to your eye. And that's where you put your peep in. So, if you have to move it up or down, it's just incremental. It's not, pulling it down a
Huge.
quarter inch or 3/8 of an inch, where I'm increasing that twist ratio and decreasing. It's pretty doggone close,
Mhm,
because they'll call me and be like, "Hey, man, my peep's rotating." And I know darn good and well that peep ain't rotating because I look at it on the machine before I even put it in the package, to
mhm,
check for rotation. And the first thing I ask them, "Hey, when you put your peep in, did you pull it down or push it up?" And they're like, "Yeah, well, I had to get the height right." I'm like, "Yeah, nope, nope." You know, if the height's right, go ahead and mark it. Take the peep out, put it in the press, take the peep out of it, let the string relax, get to where it needs to go, then reinstall the peep where you marked it at, and it won't. And
mhm,
they'll call me back, like, dude, that worked. I have no more rotation. The second thing that I see people installing is what we talked about earlier, tying in knock sets and separating their center serving. Um,
okay,
they just get too gung ho with it. They think everything has to be so stinking tight. Um, they end up causing their self a problem. And then when you're burning knock sets, at least once or twice a week, I get somebody that has burned through the center serving or burned a fiber. It's like, man, that lighter does not have to get way all the way up to the string. Hold it away.
I
Sounds like you might have done something like that.
I'm a nervous Nelly. I don't get that close to it. I sit there. I probably leave more of the string than to push down than I probably should. But I'm under. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Um, I guess those are some of the main things that I see people do, constantly is they burn something or um, they pull that peep sight down or push it up. That's the big things that I see. Um, every now and again, I'll get somebody that'll cut a bowstring, with a razor blade or something,
Mhm.
but not, that's either using too dull of a razor blade or just not paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's there's a few things, some intricate stuff. Like if you get into like replacing your center serving, like you're going to get close to the string. Like you have to pay attention to what you're doing and don't try to cut it all off. Get it to where it gets a little loose so you can start to unravel it. Once you get
Yeah.
get it to where it will move, you can unravel it. Like you just sit there and unravel it. Don't try to cut all of it because yeah, you're just opening yourself up to some issues there. Um, so that little string that you guys put in there, right? I know what it is. That's the dead center of both pack of the string packet, right? That is the dead center between the two. I'm assuming with your package, you probably take, you have X amount of string on this side, X amount of string on this one, and then it's like two that you bring or a couple that you bring together, then just twist to make the string. Is that kind of how this works, or and that's the dead center of all those fibers?
Yeah. So if you think about, the strings are built on a 4-post jig,
Hmm.
and this is your loop on one side, and this is your loop on the other side, right? And
Okay.
between the two.
Hmm.
Um, when I take them off the 4-post and I'm holding them by the loop, right? I got half the bundle on one side, half the bundle on the other side.
Hmm.
And then you put them on the hooks of the machine, and then you separate your colors if you're multicolor. You
Hmm.
separate your colors, and then before I twist it, I just stick that string right up through the center of the bundle, tie it off, and then I go ahead and twist. Um, so we have had some people go, "Hey, I wanted all of if it was a green and black string, right? I wanted some of the greens. I wanted all the green string on one side and all the black string on the other side of my peep." And so they go through and they hand pick the strings out. Well, what if your bundle called to be a different diameter and I had to cut a strand out? So now you don't have 32 strands, you have 30 strands. Or, you know, what if the colors don't match strand to strand?
Hmm.
Well, now I've got, you know, an odd amount of string on one side and a different amount on the other side. Now I've got an unstable bundle. So you don't separate the colors. Leave them just the way I put them. You know, well, what that causes, it causes the load to shift right from side to side of the bundle.
Hmm.
Right, so it can cause peep rotation because one side of the string is seeing more weight than the other. So yeah, just leave the colors just the way I have them. They're done that way for a reason.
I all my the unfortunately my the string that's on my Elite, I don't know what I did. I accidentally pulled that string, that peep string out, I leave them in there. Like the, my Matthews, it's all the way up to the very top. I just left it up there. So if I do need to do something, I can work it back down. I know where my dead center is, and then I go and I work from there. So, oh yeah, I always know where the center of it is because that doesn't come out. It's all frayed and nasty looking right now, but it's there.
Well, I mean, if you look at like a Bowtech, these new Bowtech bows, um, I'm putting 28 strands of material on the string and 30 on the cables. So
Hmm.
you got a multicolored string and cable set, you're going to have odd numbers of strings, right, of different colors. So
Hmm.
you can't physically put all of one color on one side and all of one because you're going to have an odd, a varied amount of fiber on each side, and it's going to cause you issues.
Hey, I'll tell you what, kudos to that person who actually sat there and did all that. Just sit there and take the time to find all those strands and do that. Cause I look at them
Uh,
like, uh, that
well,
looks
I mean,
close enough.
you can have 16 on one side and 14 on the other, and it's like, now you just ruined your bowstring.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Well, Brent, is there anything else you wanna get out while we're together and before we close this thing out? There's something we haven't talked about you want to get out there?
I think the only thing really left to say is, a lot of people in the archery industry, especially when buying bowstrings, is they want fast. And to be a custom bowstring builder, not a mass producer, I will say that fast is trash. If
Hmm.
somebody's going to get a set of bowstrings out in a couple days, they're probably not built to the same standards that somebody like myself would build them. Um, Quality is worth waiting for. And just like I tell everybody, I'm about quality, not quantity. So,
Hmm.
uh, to each his own. But you know, if you really want a custom set of bowstrings, go to a one guy shop or a two guy shop. Somebody that's going to take care of you and take pride in everything that they build.
Yeah, 'cause we talked a little bit. I don't know. I think it might have been before we hit record, but how many times you've seen the ones that are like the one or two man shops that everybody talks about, they rave about them, right? And all of a sudden they start to grow because they're really popular. And then all of a sudden they start getting factory demands like, hey, um, I'll just, I don't, I'm not going to name like a specific. So if let's say brand X says, hey, we would like to use your strings as stock strings on our bows. And now all of a sudden now you have to keep up with that demand. So you need to
I've been there.
expand.
I've
You
been
need,
there. I did that. I used to build bowstrings for Obsession and Martin. Um, and that was very short lived because they wanted everything fast and they wanted everything really cheap. And it's like
Mhm,
that just doesn't fit my business model. I'm going to go ahead and walk away from this now.
yeah. Well, there you have to mass produce stuff. Like you have to get it out quick and you have to get it out,
Yes.
as cost effective as possible. And then,
Mhm.
when that happens, then you start to see all these issues start to arise with
Right.
these brands, right? Oh, well, I'm not going to name it, but I've heard this before. Like, when they first came out, they were
Yep.
great. Now they're not what they used to be. Like,
Yep.
they're not the
A-
same. They
And,
used to
and
be the
I can name,
BCs.
I can name about three or four companies right now in the string industry that fit that bill.
Hmm. I
And
mean,
I refuse to go there. I mean, I'm gonna be a one man shop until probably the day I die. I mean, I'm not trying to grow. I'm just what you get right now is what you're gonna get forever.
yeah.
So
Well, appreciate that. And that just seems to be the going rate. Like someone gains fire and then quality suffers, just because it's the name of the business, right? It's how it goes. No one's gonna care for your product more than you. Like, so you can hire people in that does okay work or does good work, but they're not gonna do the same that you did. Maybe
right.
one or two, but when you
I,
do a lot,
I've,
no.
I've had one guy that I've hired that could build a bowstring that would match my quality. One person, and I tried to find another one of him, after he left. He had some health issues and had to
Mhm,
leave, but I tried to find other people since then, and I've never been able to find somebody that actually has that artistic. It's a talent. It's an artistic talent to what we do, as a custom bowstring. I mean, it's not something everybody can do. I mean, you have to have an attention to detail, um, and not everybody has that.
no, it's unfortunate. but also fortunate too. Like, but it's any of the skilled labored places. Like, there's only a handful of people that are really good at it. Like, this is what we do. We're really good at it. Then you try to mass produce something, and just they just it becomes a paycheck, or it becomes something that the other person really don't have anything invested in. Like, yeah, whatever. It's just a string.
And, and I've even brought people on, and this is no joke. Brought people on. Say, hey, look, I understand you don't have the money to buy into my company.
Hmm.
Come on and work for a year. After work, weekends, whatever time you can afford, and give me some sweat equity for a year, and I'll give you a percentage of this company, you know, and they come in, and I've done it twice, and both times within 6 to 7 weeks, they're like, "Hey, man, I need 50% of the company. I need it tomorrow, or I'm not gonna do this anymore." And I'm like, "Why why on earth would I want to do that?"
Right.
Yeah, like, you've worked for me for a total of 20 hours in the course of 6 weeks, and now you're demanding 50% of a company you had no you know? Um,
No.
no, sorry.
No. It's been real. It's been fun, but no.
You can go on about your way, but that's happened to me twice.
I don't think
Yeah,
I don't see it getting any better either. But
no,
unfortunately,
and
everybody wants it now.
yeah, and after this last time, I just said, "You know what? I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna keep it just me, and that's it. I'm not bringing anybody else in." You know, the guy you call and talk to on the phone or you email is the same guy that's building your bowstrings. He's the same guy that sweeps the floor up every night, so, um, yeah,
Mm,
true custom.
there's a lot to be said for that when it comes to quality and care over the product. And why your when the products come out, when somebody gets one of your bowstrings in their hands, they can trust it, they can have confidence in it. It's because it's your guarantee to them, right? It's not your guarantee via via Bob that you hired 3 weeks ago, right? It's your
Exactly,
guarantee to them.
yeah.
Ah,
Well,
well,
and
Brent,
the other thing I'll leave you with, man, is I've been building bowstrings for, 30 years or more, and a lot of these companies out there can't even add up their employees' time to equal 30 years.
mhm.
So, there's a lot of knowledge that's up here, that these other people just don't have.
Well, you're one of those. I'm thinking. I'm envisioning. Do you ever watch Yellowstone?
Yeah.
I'm envisioning that spur maker that they went to go get spurs. Also, by here, I'm here to pick up a set of these for so and so. He's like, "Oh, these are one piece. I ain't seen these done in a while." Something like this. Like, you're like that one. You find yourself in that thing. You're like one of the very few last left ones. Ones left that still do it this way. There's a few that pop up here and there, but you're one of the last. I don't want to say holdout. When I say holdout, it doesn't sound right, but you're one of those last true craftsmen out there, still building them the right way, still doing it the right way. You found this process that works, and that you have this guarantee for, and that you are okay being where you are. Like, I don't need to grow. I don't need to be, I'm not going to risk my reputation, my product, my whatever to grow. Like, this is what it is. When you get a hold of me, this is what you get. This is what I guarantee. So,
Uh, that's a simple approach, and that's one I stick with.
well, Brent, it has been a pleasure to talk all things bowstrings. It's a topic I'm very interested in because of just I'm a tinkerer, and I always tinker around and wonder how this stuff is done. Like I said, it always blows my mind. I don't know how you take a packet of, like, you take this spool of string, right, that you get, and then you put them on these jigs, and then somehow after you're done twisting it and stretching it, it's the right length. I don't know how you do it. I'm not going to ask. You've explained it. You've explained it. It's still magic to me. So
I'll I'll send you some video. How about that?
that'll work. That'll work. Well, Brent, where can people find you at? Website and all your socials, all those things. Where can they find you at?
Yep, website is a3archery.com. Facebook is the same way, Instagram's the same way. Um, yeah, come come check us out. I try to post content daily. Um, the website builder, there's a visualization tool on the website. You can build your bowstrings and watch the colors change. Um, I actually use the actual fiber colors in the builder, so that's not just template colors. Um, I took high res photos of the colors, extracted them in Photoshop, and that's the colors that you see on the builder. So always looking to be more innovative and bring something better to the customer. So
Yeah,
thank y'all.
I did play around with that when I seen that. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I go and start putting different colors and say, which combination do I want to make today? So
And do
unicorn
you know
blood. I see unicorn blood. I'm like, what is that?
yeah, do you know how many string companies have reached out to me wanting to buy that from me?
Really?
Yeah, I've had several people reach out and wanna buy the string builder, because it's probably the best in the industry,
No,
as far as
it's
colors
really
fits
good.
go.
It is
Yeah,
really good. Like, when I was like, "Well, this is actually kinda nice. I can actually see what this is gonna look like," and it looks really real, so, good kudos to you, man, for working that out. Well, ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this afternoon or this evening, whenever you, listen to this podcast. And for you listeners, I have some good news for you guys. If you are looking to get a new bowstring, then head over to a3archery.com and use the code CountryFried with a K to save yourself 15% on your brand new set of strings. So check out Brent at a3archery.com. Go check out his Instagram, his and all his socials. And also, we appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to the show. Come and join us for the last about hour and a half that this has been on. And because I know your guys' time is valuable, and we don't take that lightly that you spent that time to listen to us talk about bowstrings and the importance of those. And from making them to the materials all the way up to caring for them. I hope you guys found this to be as informative as I have found it to be. Uh, with that being said, y'all, make sure you check us out at our socials at Country Fried Outdoors. That's countryfried.outdoors on the TikTok, Country Fried Outdoors on Instagram, Country Fried Outdoor Productions on YouTube. And then other than that, you could check the podcast out on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio. There's another one somewhere, Amazon. The video version will appear on Spotify and YouTube, so check it out there. All the other ones, including Apple, will have the audio only version. So check it out there. Wherever you find it at, leave us a review, share it, and give us a like and share that with your friends. It helps us out tremendously. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, until our experiences cross paths again, may y'all have the courage to fail, but yet the humility to learn. And as always, we hope you stay safe out there, and God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.